Everybody, it's Dale here again, and today I have with me Neha Patel. Neha is the partner in charge of our ITAS group, but more importantly for today, what we're here to talk about is Inspire, because Neha runs Inspire for the firm. So good to have you here, Neha. So how's everything going on your end?
Good. I think that given that it's month 3 at the new normal, we've been much better at stabilizing, but those first few weeks were quite daunting, I will say. I've definitely got a dual working household set up with my twins that are 6-year-olds. So we're in grade school. So I became an instant homeschooler, which is brand new information.
Oh, yeah. Twins, homeschooling.
Yep. It's just a little bit of a dynamic change, but we've been pleasantly surprised at how resilient we've noticed not only ourselves have been reflecting on it, but in all of this chaos, it's been impressive to see some of our support system and how well we've all gotten along as well. You know, everyone's been incredibly innovative. And I think that that's probably been one of the most important things to reflect on as a culture is to go, oh my gosh, we really did jump at it. And it was really kind of very positive to see that.
Yeah, it has been pretty interesting how fluid this transition to the remote work has been for a lot of us. I mean, a lot of us are used to working remotely from being at clients and just because, like, I know you travel a fair bit too from a work perspective. So it's
and I agree with you. I think that that's been, again, a reflection point. It didn't feel like it probably in March when the news was coming out and we were trying to adapt to it, but all in all, I think it's been very important to the scope of Inspire, especially to see how well we've actually used our culture to navigate through this type of epidemic or pandemic. Personally, something that we've been talking about quite a bit as a firm and as leaders in the culture committee has been creating an environment of inclusion. And when you talk about something like this, that was a jarring event that occurred globally, I mean, it really does make you reflect on how inclusive a culture we are in really adapting to all of the different facets of this. This has impacted our workforce. And so for me personally, I mean, a dual working home with young children, we're one of many stories. And to hear all the dynamic differences is what has been very enlightening. And I think that something else that we've talked a lot about is unconscious bias. And what this has done, this environment has done, is given us more opportunity to really break the barrier on that.
Yeah.
And so we've all had to adapt and learn about how individuals are able to adapt. And in my team, those that I've been interacting with, different levels, different life environments, it's not just about being a caregiver to young ones, caregivers to the elderly, caregivers to sick. Our own wellness has been in check. And so it really did kind of blow the concept of bias a little bit open, because it opened our world to having conversations and being invited into people's homes and people's everyday beyond the workforce. And I think that's probably been one of the most enlightening pieces of this scenario.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I found that too myself, and I'm home during that. Even though it's different still too, because my kids aren't in school. They're home now, but usually we're at work, so we don't see behind the curtain as much as what's going on at home. It's just like, what my wife's having to manage with the kids, and
right.
So we usually you get home and you're kind of thrust into this environment that you walk into, and you're being more, I'd say active, but being more an active participant in the day-to-day of things that are going on, while we were typically at the office has been very enlightening for me too.
No, I agree. And I think that, it's a little bit of a blessing in the sense that it's reconnected us. So just as much as it's helped professionally, it's helped personally. So when it comes to wellness and just your own mental wellness and mental well-being, what this has done is it's helped me not only find and make time to re-engage with those closest to me professionally, I've done the same personally. I am having more Zoom calls, FaceTimes, and video chats with my childhood friends, checking in on them. with family members,
Yeah.
checking in on them. And so it's kind of interesting that these tools that have enabled us professionally also enabled me personally. We're having children's dates through FaceTime and Zoom meetings. Like that's how they're engaging at school too. And so it's quite interesting how it's re-energized this concept of connectivity, right? And
Yep.
it's forcing this community to come together, and it's actually for the betterment of everyone, because it's giving us an opportunity to, again, understand one another in a totally different caliber. I've got friends coast to coast, some living in San Francisco. So to hear what the environment is like in their area enlightens me to those clients that may be in those areas as well. And that's a great professional, perspective to have. Likewise, personally, it also gives me some insights. Like, for example, when I'm video conferencing with a client who has young ones and we hear them in the background, I mean, we're all just adapting to it. And it's quite lovely to see the culture broaden from the normal stereotype daily routine of the professional life.
Yeah, I agree. It humanizes a lot of things.
Very much.
So as you've kind of been going through this and learning your experiences and reflecting on a lot of this, how has that either changed, evolved, help your thoughts around inclusion and just what your thoughts around Inspire is then too?
Well, Inspire, like I said, has continued to broaden the message to be focused on inclusion. And one of the things that we spent a lot of time this year reflecting on is how do we gain more awareness and really tackle and understand both unconscious bias as well as emotional intelligence, because it's important that our people feel a sense of belonging. And I think for myself, I've reflected on how much value I get being in the office, being at the client, being physically present. And so I think at times we may have taken it for granted, this necessity to be together and the physical value of being in close proximity. And I think that I've reflected on how much that really does fuel us. And that sense of belonging really happens when we're all in the same environment. And so that's probably number one. I think once we're able to get back to that physical proximity again, I think that I would hope people aspire and desire to make time for that. So spending that extra few minutes connecting with your people, talking about how they're navigating certain challenges and continuing to support each other professionally and personally. These are some of the basics of our core values. And I think that that's probably the first and foremost that came to light, especially in the early weeks of the pandemic. The second big thing that I'll probably leave you with is that we're going to need to ebb and flow. So the adaptability of not only the firm, but ourselves to continue to stay committed and dedicated, but be adaptable is another very key element that comes to light. My own personal example, I couldn't make it back to the office to get a second monitor, so I'm using an old TV.
Nice, yeah, works.
It'll work. And so I think that getting the Zoom meeting set up, Teams meeting set up, trying to find alternative ways to work, still staying engaged, still striving to meet client demands. I think our ability to innovate and be adaptable are the other two cornerstones that I think need to be at the forefront of how we continue to evolve in the coming months and years. Because I think those are the two biggest lessons that I think that Inspire and culture really drive at too.
Yeah, it's interesting because I do feel like before all this, yes, we were very physically connected to the office, but sometimes maybe we may have lacked the emotional connectivity.
Yep.
And then we've moved to this remote environment and we've removed the physical connectivity, but I do feel the emotional connectivity has increased. And so hopefully that's what I hope is like when we transition back to, normalcy, whatever that is that we have that more of that physical connectivity, but we don't lose sight of that emotional connectivity and the importance of both of those together to give us to really truly connect with each other.
Absolutely. And I think that those two things go hand in hand and continue to strengthen what kind of makes us unique and different and are clear foundational elements that'll help everyone really kind of cope with the next era of what we navigate. And so it's honestly, it's weird to say, but I'm looking forward and I'm very optimistic and very positive about what I've seen as a reflection and what the roadmap looks like going forward. So it's still very positive, even with all the uncertainty that we have ahead of us. And I think that that's really what's been a very positive passion point for being involved in Inspire, as well as part of the culture committee, is being able to be at the forefront of these ideas and these thoughts and being able to implement them as quickly as we can.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. So are there any challenges you see just with where we are today, continue to work remote, but as we also transition back to the office, just around inclusion?
Well, I think what I'd be most nervous about is that because several of our work team members are eager to get back, that we become focused again and don't necessarily make time again for each other. That's probably the biggest nervousness I have. Right now, one of the benefits we have is because we're not commuting or traveling, part of that time has been dedicated in reinvesting in ourselves and investing in our teams and spending that extra time together. What I would really want to aspire for is us to hold on to the importance of us staying connected. And so those after school or after work activities, really making time for that and making sure we recognize the value of that and not necessarily going back to an environment where we're focused and driven only, but that we're also remembering to look up every now and then and see our group and make time for those connections across the firm. Because now it's not isolated to any location. We should be doing this commingling across the nation as often as we can. And I hope that continues.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the other thing I've learned through this too is you have to place a lot of reliance upon your team to drive that inclusion and connectivity too, because, when we're all in, the office together, you can easily connect with 20, 30 people if everybody's there. But right now, you don't have you can't connect with everybody, and so you've got to drive that culture, that expectation through your team, so that if everybody's working together in the same direction, it's lifting it all up together.
You're absolutely right. I think what's been the most fun about this is it's not always the leaders driving it. Our teams are asking for it. And there's just such power when we have our personnel, our teams really, even as early as our associates or interns, really driving the efforts as well. Saying, hey, let's do Cinco de Mayo since that's yesterday, and let's go ahead and get on a happy hour. Or, hey, let's plan a trivia game just because. And I see that coming from individuals that are more junior staff. And I think that that's one of the most endearing and empowering elements of this, that our leaders should enable that environment, enable that culture. But it's incumbent on every person to try to say yes more than no and show up more than decline and actually come up with these ideas, because I think we're all game. I think it's really positive that way.
That's great. Yeah. Everybody can play a role and everybody can take ownership. So it's awesome. So, well, it was great to see you. Appreciate your time. And thank you so much today.
Of course. It's always a pleasure. I love talking about stuff.
Thanks, Neha. See ya.
Thank you.